Yo, what up, guys? So, this subject is long overdue as a video, but Clay Guida has been released from the UFC. A long time coming. I think he overstood his welcome a little bit. He's been around for a super long time, one of the OGs of the fight business, and honestly, even way past his prime, he was still winning fights against up-and-comers, and he was definitely a gatekeeper for the new guys, and I think he took his last official loss to Chase Hooper, and then obviously the writing was on the wall. And honestly, he came out with his health as intact as it could be. He is still a very functioning human being, but he was always just the same guy, And where am I going with this exactly? Because I don't want to just be, oh, congratulations, Clay Guida, let me glaze you for a few minutes, right? I think that he could pave a really good roadmap for Kevin Holland right now, because I have been thinking quite a bit, and it's not necessarily the fact that Kevin Holland has been losing a lot of his fights now, but the fact that he has gone down in fan favoritism. Because the thing is he was never going to be a championship caliber fighter. He had that potential until he fought Derek Brunson, then he hit a roadblock, went on a bad skid at middleweight, came back at welterweight. His fights were still very entertaining. And then eventually he hit a roadblock at welterweight. And it was just very clear that he was never going to be that guy. And even after that, I still saw a lot of star power potential. He would always be opening up these pay-per-views, and he would be just fun to watch overall, win or lose. But he has been losing, which isn't necessarily the worst part. Every fighter has that day where they just don't fight the same anymore. But the way that he has been, for lack of a better term, coping with it. And the Rampage Jackson podcast is probably the best scenario, because after you're talking about unless it's like the buckshot or something, I really don't care or anything like that he wants to take on Rampage Jackson in a fight. I honestly, even though Rampage Jackson is older, I don't think he'd want to fight Rampage Jackson, to be honest. That guy was a light heavyweight champion, and if you look at his Pride days and his Pride era, he had some of the craziest moments where it's like you would not want to mess with that dude at all. I actually remember one time I bumped into him at a local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament, and he was advertising a fight for his son. And I shook his hand, and the iron grip, like the pure rock, it was like I was shaking hands with a colossus. Imagine being on the other end of the arena with that dude staring you down, ready to go full force. Like that crazy. I was like, wow, that's the difference between normal person and professional fighter. So I don't think I know Kevin Holland was definitely above me on the hand-to-hand fighting combat stuff, but I don't think he's above Rampage Jackson despite the age range. But the way that he presented himself on that podcast, and the way leading up to this fight he has presented himself, and the way he's been with certain reporters, nitpicking and all that stuff, who he's being mean towards and who he's been gracious towards, it has put a bad taste in the fans' mouth, and he's taking away the one bit left of his career that he can possibly salvage, and that's the charisma and the fan support. Look at Tony Ferguson, for example. As many fights in a row as this guy has lost, people still treat him like he's still in his prime because he hasn't lashed out at the fans. He acknowledges them for keeping it going. And where Kevin Holland is kind of just putting horrible tastes in people's mouths now. And I think the way that he's presented himself has really hurt him, because that's the thing. You look at that Derek Brunson fight, even when he was losing, he was still talking a lot of trash. And you know what? I found that funny. I'm like, hey, you know what? At least he's the same way in loss as he's in during the winning eras. And he just kind of kept having that moment. You know what I'm talking about? He kept doing that thing. He kept doing his stuff, and he had this consistent character to him. And then anytime he'd walk out during a welterweight fight, he would be just fun to have come out. He had that charisma to him. He was like, I'm doing this for the fans, but now it's just, you get where I'm going with this. The fact that he has gone back on having an awesome personality Now he's kind of making sure that he's alienating himself and putting himself in an even smaller box than he could possibly be in. And it's only getting smaller at this point, you know. And where am I going with all this? Kevin Holland could actually learn from Clay Guida. Clay Guida, win or lose, despite having double digits on his wins or his losses or whatever, he was still that crazy dude that showed up. He never really put too much off-color stuff out there. He just showed up to be Clay Guida. He showed up to be a fighter. And even on the way out, he was nothing but grateful, right? That's sometimes the last thing that a fighter could salvage. You know, even if they are playing the heel or not, even with Michael Bisping when he lost the title, you know, he said George St. Pierre was the better man. And he stood up, and despite him playing the bad boy, fans still love him. And you know what? I don't think they're going to release Kevin Holland just yet. I hope not. But I want to see Kevin Holland at least gain some sort of redemption. Just like as bad as Jamal Hill has made himself look, that fight and how he handled it so far, I'm saying so far because we haven't seen any follow-up videos, has really showed that he was a class act with Yuri Prochazka in the octagon. And seeing all that stuff go down, I got to say he's actually kind of redeemed some respect in a lot of our eyes. At least I could speak for myself, you know. I never really hated Jamal Hill. I know that's a little weird to say. I know he's kind of a hate post right now, but I still thought that he had a lot going for him too, you know, and I think he still does. I think he's honestly up to stock. But for Kevin Holland right now, it's not too late for him to turn it around. And for a lot of like Clay Guida and all those guys, take a page out of their book. Acknowledge that, yeah, no, you know what? Maybe I'm just here to fight now. Maybe I'm just here because this is what I do for a living. I know I'm not going to touch the belt. I'm getting a little older. It's not working out like that. But I definitely think that would be better than what we're putting on right here. Because like I said in the last video, I asked a question. Is Kevin Holland finished? And I think I could answer that right now. And then I'm going to wrap this up. No, I don't think he is finished. I don't think it's too late. But if, you know, he doesn't check his attitude towards all these external factors, I think then it could be too late. And looking back at the 2020 era where he was super active, seeing a downfall and a quick turnaround like that as a UFC fan is rather heartbreaking. But that's what I got to say. Peace out. See you later. Cheers.